Welcome to another edition of Let's Get Crystal Clear. We are having a kick-ass 2020 so far. We've been talking about love and relationships. This is one of my favorite conversations to have, which is why I'm so excited to welcome my guest today, Tracy McMillan from Family or Fiance. Welcome to Let's Get Crystal Clear.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Now, I actually am a fan of the show. I didn't know exactly what the show was when I got the information about it. And then I started to watch it and I was like, wow, this is really good, because not only do you see, well, I'll let you explain exactly what happens with the couples, but not only do you see the couples going through their issues, you see issues that they've had with family that they haven't taken care of. So where did this concept come from, and why did you think this would be a great thing to do?
Well, the concept was already in place when I came along. Basically, they had come up with the show idea and they were looking for a host.
Okay.
And I had been on Supersoul Sunday in 2014. And they remembered me from that. They brought me in.
Okay.
Presumably they brought other people in too. But when I heard the idea, I was like, this is so good, because, you know, your relationship issues generally originate in your family.
That's very true.
So
Very true.
putting everybody in the same house is basically like very fancy family therapy. Or, you know what I'm saying?
It's like a shock therapy.
But it's great because it all comes out. And
Yeah.
people have a healing. Like that moment when they come out of the house and I'm waiting for them, they are changed people.
Yeah.
Everyone. No one is the same as when they walked in the house.
There were some really interesting situations last season. Some stayed together, some didn't.
That's
and
right.
It actually surprised me that just on that one weekend would tear apart some couples. Like, you wondered, why did you think this would work?
Right.
And they'd been together for quite a bit of time before. What do you think it is about that enclosed space with everybody who really knows you and people who really know me, and some of those people are like, this isn't going to work, and this just kind of dismantles the fantasy, I guess?
I think that's a very big part of it. But I think even more fundamentally, when you make an agreement to know the truth, like you decide you're going to enter a situation where you're willing to work on your relationship,
Right.
that is like making agreement with the universe. It's like a prayer. And then when you create that space, boom, the universe meets you halfway. And so it really is like, even at home, if you want to come to truth in your relationship, all you have to do is set that intention, like, I'm willing to know the truth.
That is true.
And as soon as you state that within, to yourself and to the universe, it happens, you know? And so I think, yes, all these factors, but you know, there's couples who deal and suppress and repress for decades, those kinds of issues going on in the family. So the thing that really is the game changer is the agreement that the couples are making with each other and with themselves.
To really be honest.
That's right.
Wow. That's interesting. There's so much I wanted to ask you, but
Well, let's
specifically.
talk about the premise, right? So in case people don't know what the premise is, so there's a couple and they want to get married,
Right.
and the families are against it.
Okay,
And
so I don't
so-
know the families are always against it.
There's somebody in the family who's against it.
Okay.
Either her side, his side, her mom. Maybe there's, out of the 6 family members who come, 3 on each side, maybe only one of them's against it.
Okay.
But there's an issue there.
Okay.
And usually that issue is the surface. And then there's like a whole bunch of, it's like if you dig down, there's even more issues underneath that.
Right. Right.
And so it goes like this. There's an individual, there's a couple, and there's a family. And each one of those pieces could be an area where we are getting in there and doing work.
Right.
Sometimes the conflict is an individual conflict. You know, somebody's in conflict with themselves around their relationship with their mother, for example.
Right.
Or sometimes it's the couples in conflict. And sometimes it's one person in conflict with like the whole family.
Right. Right.
That happens too.
Yeah, it is. I think that watching the couples last season, because you mentioned that they're a little bit different this season.
Yeah.
There were a lot of different issues, but a lot of times the family, the things that they were saying were true. what I want to ask you is when you see such polar opposites with family,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of times the couple,
Yeah.
you won't see the opposites
No.
until the family comes,
Yeah.
and then it's almost like they pick sides. It's like, no,
Yeah.
but I belong over here. This is how we think. And the other, you know, those significant others like,
Yeah.
what? Like,
Well, there's usually a quiet family and a loud family. Just to make it really simple, there's like a family that shows up and it's like, we're chill, we're
Right.
quiet, you know, and then there's like some family that's like, whoa, whoa, you know, and like right there you see
yeah,
what like
personalities,
differences.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's about differences in how you resolve conflict, how you speak on things.
Right.
You know, it's pretty deep and fascinating what happens.
It is.
The
It
families
is.
get almost as much healing as the couple.
That's what it looks like. I mean, it's looked like it repairs the relationship between that person and their family.
It does.
So at least they go home closer. Now the couples don't always seem to stay together.
No, we actually talk about, there are many different versions of what is considered a happy ending on Family or Fiance. What we consider a happy ending is when the outcome is in the highest good
Right.
of everyone involved.
And that doesn't mean they necessarily stay together.
Doesn't necessarily mean that.
What is so different about this season? You mentioned this season is going to be really, really
well,
great.
this season, the couples have watched last season. So they're coming in with a level of commitment to the process that the first season couples couldn't have because they had never seen the show before.
Right, right.
So all the couples here, not every single one, but most of them watched the show and went, you know, usually the woman, because I'll ask them, which one of you wanted to come here?
Right.
But they're both in agreement with it because a lot of times when one person knows there's an issue, so does the other person.
Right. It seems like
And
most
they
of the
want to
time-
resolve it,
Right.
you know? So I'll be like, whose idea was this? And then the woman will go, it was my idea. And he'll like, but I wanted to, like there's an episode where she really has a problem with his relationship to his best friend.
Okay.
And it's a big issue in their relationship. And the best friend comes and, you know, they unpack it.
They unpack it. Wow. Now, best friends is that's different, but usually it's parents.
But that's like his family though.
Oh, okay.
For
Okay.
his story is that that best friend was like his brother.
Okay. Okay.
You know?
Yeah. I guess it just depends on the dynamic that the people have. But
Exactly.
I wanted to ask you about, because there was an Instagram thread I was following a few days ago with a relationship therapist, and they were saying that women have daddy issues, and
Sure.
it keeps them from being able to be successful in relationships.
Yeah.
And the point was when men have mommy issues,
Yeah.
they're still able to function.
Interesting.
I don't know if I agree with that, so I wanted to ask your
I
opinion
agree
on
with that either. That's interesting. I mean, we could like dive into that a little bit. Like, what were they saying is the reason? Why is it
They
that
said men are able to be more to separate better than women are able to. They're
you
able to
know,
be more
not on
rational.
Family or Fiance, they're not. Because I would say men having issue being too close to their moms is a major situation on our show. But if I were to say why that might be, I'd say one, men can compartmentalize better,
Right.
and two, women. Okay, so what are daddy issues? Let's just break that down,
Right.
okay? Because I'm like, women can have mommy issues.
Right. And men can have
Men-
daddy issues.
Exactly.
True.
So what this is really about is a daddy issue is what's your relationship to masculine?
It's masculine.
What's your relationship to being cared for in that
In that way.
masculine way?
Wow. Yeah.
And as a person who has major daddy issues, if you will, I think that it's like you have two parts of you, your masculine and your feminine. And it's like as soon as I really kind of resolved some of my dad issues, that's when I started to really see some of my mom issues.
Oh wow.
And the mom issues were more subtle,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
For me, the mom issues are about neglect and not feeling worthy. The dad issues, so my dad was like a pimp and a drug dealer who went to prison for most of my life, but he really loved me,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
he loved me, but from prison.
Right.
So I tend to be in relationships with men who love me from their prison, whatever their prison is. I think when you're really unpacking these things, you got to look for the metaphor.
Right.
Right. You can pick somebody who's everything different on the outside, but the metaphor is
Right.
going to be the same.
That dynamic of that relationship is
Yes.
familiar.
Yes, somehow. And when
Yeah.
you can start to make those connections, that's when you start to get free. Because it stops being about, I'm unworthy, I'm unlovable, I'll never get what I want. And it's more like I have a belief system.
Right. Why am I doing this?
I keep acting out. Yes.
I love that. What I like about you is that you are very candid about your own experiences.
Yes.
And that you're saying, I am doing this to help people, and I'm relying on the fact that I've learned a lot from what I've gone through.
100%.
But I think that's real, and I think people relate to that.
Yes.
I think that's what makes you so impactful, is the fact that it's not coming from I'm talking to you. It's like, this is what's happened to me, and I see this, and the empathy feels more real.
Yeah, it's like until I came along, I mean, I was on Dr. Phil's podcast a couple weeks ago, and he's like, I've been married 45 years. I'm like, right, Dr. Phil, and that's why you know nothing about me. Because that's never going to happen in my world. Like, you don't know me. Like, and I think most relationship experts are like people with psychology degrees who had got married once and it worked out.
And they're assessing what's wrong with you problematic people, because this is what we've done and we've done it right.
And I'm like, okay, I've made 100,000 mistakes.
Right.
And everything I've had to do to heal myself and put myself back together, I just share with other people.
Right.
And I feel like all the people with the messy backgrounds like me relate to that, because so much of it is about making the mistakes and loving yourself anyway.
Right.
And making the mistakes and not moving into shame.
Right.
Or making the mistakes and going, it's okay, sweetheart. You're still lovable, and you can still work this out. Which I still have to tell myself, because it's not.
Yeah, it's an
I
ongoing
haven't
thing.
worked it all out, you know.
What do you think the biggest lesson that you went through that helps you be able to really relate to what you're doing right now with Family or Fiance?
Well, I mean, definitely my 3 marriages and 3 divorces. So there'd be that, you know. I mean, I got married once in the 80s, 90s, and 00s, right? So I got married in my teens, in my 30s, in my 40s.
How old were you?
19.
19, okay. I was 20. That's okay.
Yeah. So you know what that's like.
Yeah.
You don't know who you are. But you know what's interesting? That was a good marriage. Yeah. I wasn't ready.
Right.
And
that's
huge. Great.
Yeah, that's
great.
huge. That's huge. That's huge to start off that way. That's huge.
I knew what I was supposed to want. Like, I'd watch TV.
Yeah.
I saw what was right.
Right.
I couldn't make myself not want it, right? Because you know what comes to you is like, I'm bored, or this isn't right, or we're not compatible. Those are the words that come into your mind. But what it really is I have an intimacy thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel right to be securely attached.
Oh, yeah.
I want excitement, because excitement feels like daddy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's about having to retrain yourself to be okay and to bond with someone who's not doing that thing.
Right.
That is the hard work.
That's really big. And I think that's why there's this idea that women just are attracted to bad boys and bad relationships. And I'm like, no one self-sabotages on purpose.
No.
We do self-sabotage, but
Subconscious.
it's not on purpose. And really it's what you're saying. Tell people, because we're excited to see the new season.
Yeah.
Just just touch on some of the examples. Because I know that we mentioned that there was a couple last season that had, one of the young ladies was bisexual. Her husband came from a very conservative family. There was another person that had lost a spouse that was dealing with the grief still. So what are some of the examples that we can expect?
So some of the issues that we look at this season are, so there's a woman whose mother gave her up, who wants to resolve the relationship with her mom before she walks down the aisle.
Okay.
And the mom, the biological mom, is not okay.
Oh, wow.
It's just messy. And it's an amazing episode. There's an episode where there's a lot of conflict in the couple, and the family see all this conflict and they're like, you are not ready to get married.
Yeah.
There's issues where one of the fiance women is like incredibly sort of princessy. And I'm not going to say the word spoiled, but she's used to getting her way. And his family does not want him to marry her because they feel like his life is going to be hell trying to make this woman happy.
Yeah.
What else?
I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah. I mean, there's issues. This is a big one where the family feels like they are moving too fast. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
Slow down.
There's
You
no
do
rush.
not- yeah.
Right.
And then the couple is like, we're getting married in a week. Get
Yeah.
out of the way.
Oh
You
my
know what I
God.
mean? So, those are some examples of
Yeah,
situations that you're going to
That
see.
sounds really good. That sounds really
Every
interesting.
single episode has something really interesting at the very core. And then there's always other things going on that you relate to.
Right.
Like, you relate to every one of these couples. I
Definitely,
relate to
or
all
some,
of them.
one of the
Somebody.
family, somebody in there you can relate to. Well, I have to ask you another question because we are in Atlanta. We're taping this here in Atlanta,
Yes.
and there's this idea. Atlanta is a place where there's so many successful single women that are not married and want to be married.
All big cities.
Exactly. And so there's this, I think it's just the time that we're in. You were, I think, kind of got your name for the why you're still,
Why you're not married.
Why you're not married yet. So what advice would you give to women that are, because you constantly are being bombarded with this narrative of single, successful women that are, hopeless at finding a partner. You're doing something wrong. There's television shows dedicated to it.
Yeah.
There's all types of things. What is the, because you're that blog and that stayed for so long, and I think it's still
this is a huge conversation. We could do a whole show on it, but I'll say a couple things. The first thing that I see is a level of self-deception that we need to be careful of. If somebody says they don't want to be in a committed relationship with you, be done. Just done.
Wow.
Do not try the friends with benefits thing or things that where they're like we're hanging out or if you don't want that, do not go near it. You have to sometimes sacrifice that thing you want that would like taste good and be yummy
in order to get what you really want, which is health and wealth and all those things.
So that I feel like that can lock us into these situations for weeks or months, years,
unfortunately.
And so to me, that's the thing that we really can do something about. That's a huge one.
That is a huge one.
So the other thing I think is that we have to prioritize relationship if we want it. If we think that we're going to want a marriage or a long-term committed relationship, we need to get on that.
Right.
Not when we're 38.
Right.
But like make it like we treat our careers. Here's what I've learned. I started the real busy part of my career at 42. This is going to be radical. Are you ready? Okay. I think you can have the career later, anytime.
That is radical.
Like I'm
that
in my
radical.
50s.
But that
This
is
a great time.
That is the opposite of everything we've been taught.
I know, but I'm like, this is a great time to crush a career. My kids graduated from college. I have an empty nest. Nothing's stopping me. That stuff around mating and baby and all that, I really only had that period to do it. Now I accidentally got pregnant. Yay. Okay. Because I don't know if I was doing it on purpose, if I ever would have done it.
Yeah, that's a good point. That it is radical because, like I said, we're taught, and I think that we feel like our careers, especially the kind of career that you have, where you're in a very visual position, women are taught that's something that you should do while you're young and while you're this and that, and there'll be time for family. And then there's so many women finding out that that is not the case.
And like, I feel like I can work until I'm 80.
Right.
Like, and it's not to say you don't have any career.
Right.
You start laying some groundwork. You see where you want to go.
But to be able to focus and really tune everything else out, because that's what happens. A lot of women are in that zone.
It's a whole different vibe than creating love and creating relationships around you. And I don't know. I'm not here to tell people what to do. But all I'm going to say is my experience is I started a high-powered career at 42.
Well, I love that. That's awesome. I
and
think it's
like,
never too late to do what you really want to do. It will find you if it's for you.
It will.
Yeah, I love that.
And see, that's what found me that was for me. I had an okay career before, but when my kid was 10, that's when I started really like popping. And so having had that experience, I'm like, I was told that if you didn't just do the career like all out, it would never happen. And that is not my experience. But on the other hand, I do see that the relationship thing gets more and more challenging.
Yeah, the more you put it off.
And let me tell you why. I don't know this for real. I would love to do a study, but I'm not a scientist. It comes down to attachment. So really the people who are securely attached, there's there's 4 different kinds of attachment. 3 of them are insecure and 1 of them secure. The securely attached people, they like being in relationships. They have no problem with monogamy. They want a pair bond. They get together and they're done.
Right.
They're out of the dating pool.
Right. It's a wrap.
So it's a wrap. So the problem is, and I'm not trying to say that the odds are all there is. I'm saying it gets more challenging because the people who are left are the people who have issues or challenges around commitment and relationship.
Yeah, and it seems like divorced people, and I'm one of those.
Me too.
You mentioned being one of those. That throws a whole nother issue.
Yeah.
And because you're a divorced person and another divorced person, you have baggage just from that.
It's like
It's difficult.
exponentially complicated when kids are involved, and it's just more pressure on the relationship.
And it's just the scars that you have from that experience. Is one person over it? Are they really and truly over it? As you mentioned, sometimes they may not be until
They didn't even know they weren't that divorced.
Right.
They didn't know
that they weren't that divorced.
Yeah, it's like you were divorced, but how divorced were you? You're like, sometimes you date a guy, you're like, he wasn't as divorced as he thought he was.
That.
You know
That's very
saying?
true. Sometimes you may not be as divorced as you thought.
Indeed.
Because anger, you could be angry and angry at the situation, but you haven't taken the time to really grieve and heal. That you can go on that emotion for so long. Okay, so I literally could talk to you forever, but I know we need to get people to tune in on Saturday. Tell people where they can find the show.
Saturday at 9 p.m. Eastern.
Okay.
So that's 8 p.m. Central on OWN.
On OWN, of course.
So look up OWN on your
Cable provider.
yes, or your DirecTV, your Dish, or whatever you get.
Yes, and definitely tune in, family or fiance. Thank you so much, Tracy,
Thanks for having
stopping
me.
by.
A good conversation.
Tell people how they can follow you.
Oh my gosh, please come follow me on Instagram. I do a lot of videos. I give a lot of we have this conversation with my whole following. We're in a conversation, we're a community.
Love
and, you know, it's all about growing, expanding, and learning how to love more and better.
I
That's
love
really
that.
what it's about.
We need that in 2020.
At
Thank you.
Tracy McMillan.
At Tracy McMillan on Instagram. OWN Saturday nights, 9/8 Central. You guys tune in. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. This has been another edition of Let's Get Crystal Clear, and we're clear on love. We'll see you guys next time.